Драги мои пријатели и пријателки, добро вечер и добре дојдовте во уште едно издание. Ова издание на Јади Бурек е во предвечерието на изборите во Соединетите Американски држави. Чичко Дончо нека Јаде Бурек малце позади мене. Неговиот бурек е еден од најслатките што може да бидат. Шега на страна и прво да ви кажам дека на страна се, мене лично ми представува огромно задоволство затоа што еден од ретките медиуми сме, ние сме стварно тотално негледани. Рейтингот ни е за никаде, нас не пуштаат на телекабел, успеа џандарските копилиња кои работат во оваа телевизија да ја субверзираат. Затоа ТВ Сонце е толку негледана. Потоа проблематично е нашето емитување на А1 телевизија, и ајваните кои мислеа дека ќе се додворат до некои раководни структури овдека со некои си стримови ваму и таму кои се страшно малку гледани. Ни јас не сум подобар. Мојот YouTube канал е многу пати блокиран заради ставовите кои ги имам. Имено, се што е републикански, се што е антидемократски, антидемократи, се што е против Сорос е нормално спуштање. Но, мене ми представува лична сатисфакција за мој образ, за мене лично. Јас сутре, која пред да испуштам душа, дали сум бил на вистинската страна, не дали сум бил на страната на оние што погодиле, на оние што биле за власта, за оние што ќе победат, не ми е гајле. Знам дека сум бил на праведна страна, сум се борал за правда и не само за Америка, туку за цел свет, па и тука. Мене изборите во Америка никогаш не ми биле поважни. Важни ми беа 2016, но сега ми се уште поважни, затоа што светот никогаш не бил поблиску до рапна војна од 62 година наваму. Не било каква војна. Трета светска војна. Она што се случува со границите на Европа, со границите на Соединетите Американски држави, со кризата во Украина, со кризата на Блискиот Исток, со кризата со Иран, со кризата со Тајван. Сето тоа е резултат на една булумента, на една партиска NGO структура која нема врска ни со слобода, ни со демократија, туку е чисто профитабилно здружение кое е спремно на најрадикално за да им обстане профитот. Нивниот профит докажа и покажа дека е војната. Ако треба војна дома, војна било каде, војната е што им носи профит. Затоа што се убедени дека врхушката ќе биде заштитена. Нивните лудаци се лудаци кои буквално имаат многу ретардирано размислување, не прогресивно, не интуитивно, не интелектуално, туку размислување кое е многу ниско интелигентно и кое е на база на хистерија. Сорос е можеби најлукавиот и најпаметниот човек. Он има зацртано идеја со која ја не се сложувам, но начинот како успеа мамицата да ви ја расплаче на вас, праведни, богобојазни, храбри, семејни, продуховени луѓе, свиткавте кичма пред него. Алал да му е. Но, ова е мојот отпор. Го кажувам јавно, не дека нешто ќе промени, но барем ми е драго што во телевизијава собственикот Џорџ го направи ова. Секако дека во Америка е малце поинаква ситуацијата. И македонската диаспора ја нема у моментов. 90% се у подрум. Задутре ке излезат и ке речат, појма немам што се дешаваше, зелка ставав. Што сме добиле, сме победивме. Изгубивме, па знаев ја дека ќе изгубиме. Тоа е типичен македонец. Но, има храбри и можеме да го пуштиме, ги повикува сите македонци со американски пасош, да излезат и да гласаат за Доналд Трамп. Океј, исклучиме мене и сврти го ова уште еднаш 2 пати.
Македонскиот бизнисмен Ѓорѓе Ѓорчо Танасовски ги повикува сите македонци кои имаат американски пасош да гласаат за идниот американски председател Доналд Трамп на предстојните председателски избори во САД. Македонскиот бизнисмен Ѓорѓе Ѓорчо Танасовски ги повикува сите македонци кои имаат американски пасош да гласаат за идниот американски председател Доналд Трамп на предстојните председателски избори во САД.
Па, да ви кажам, македонецот како и во Македонија, така и во Америка, ќути, скриен под кошула, да не каже, да не му се чуе, за да не му замерат, утре у бизнисот да не нешто му рчнат. Ѓорџ има мани, има и доблести. Една од доблести е што у клучен момент барем покаже. Не е важно дали ќе победи у овој момент. Не е важно дали Ѓорџ е управо, дали јас сум во право. Воопшто не е важно. Важно е дали си застанал на вистинската страна. Знаете, во Втората светска војна Македонија имало 1.000.000 жители, 1.000.000 македонци. Колкумина се кренале на востание против фашистичкиот окупатор. Шака. Неколку во Прилеп. Неколку. Не 100.000, не 500.000, неколку. Ние тоа денеска го славиме. Денот на македонската револуционерна борба. Знаете што? Ја би бил многу расипан и би кажал, кој бре македонци револуционерна борба? За Илинден 1000 души. 41 ни толку. Тие по име и презиме си заслужуваат и нивните наследници. Ние не заслужуваме. Ние не кренавме сеопшта револуција храбро да застанеме на праведната страна. Ќутевме. Дали сме биле во право или не, не знам. Јас само заклучувам. Ние не сме биле како Виетнам. Виетнам се крена против американците, човече. Ги бомбардираа со напал, не се предава. Милиони изгинаа. Ама сега имаат своја слободна и независна земја која прилично добро и оди. Вредеше ли? Русите, 20 милиони руси погинаа да се ослободат од фашизмот и да стигнат до Берлин да го поразат. И Западот изгуби, али ни приближно. Југославија 20 милиона даде. Благодарен сум, бидејќи не сум способен како христијанин да земам оружје и да пукам кон друг, колку и да е праведно. Но сум благодарен што денеска можам да зборам, мојата борба да биде преку демократија и нема подобар начин за борба, да го искажам својот став, да ги повикам кукавиците да излезат од подрумите, да баталат зелката и да излезат со знаме. Неколку македонци, стварно, ми го наполнивте срцето. Предраг Николич од Тексас, поздрав друже, секоја ти чест. Дечкото од Њујорк, кој ми ги испрати капите за Трамп, он и самиот навива и ке гласа, како и уште неколкумина кои на моите профили ги објавија своите слики. Тоа е маргинално. Малце. Но знаете што ми е драго? Што низ комуникација разбирам дека тоа се разбрани, семени, паметни, начитани луѓе кои знаат што е добро, што е лошо и зошто го прават. Ниеден од нив не го прави тоа од омраза против Камала или Бајден. Тој го прави затоа што смета дека е добро за општеството, за семејството, за црквата, за народот, за нацијата, па и за Македонија. Јас затоа сум за републиканците, за Трамп, за Елон Маск, затоа што искрено сметам дека ќе ја релаксираат сеопштата светска тензија, која овие ја доведоа на рапна војна. Имено, ова со многумина гледам глумат лудило, мислам дека глумат лудило, кога се расправаат македонците со мене, дека се некакви емпатични побуди зошто ги отварале границите за сироти. Прво, не е сиротиња. Жени и деца таму не гледате. Значи, од Хаити се пуштени најголеми криминалци од затвори и право се депортирани до Америка. Тие во Америка прават ршум. Нив им се дава security number, што американец значи да добие здравствена заштита, социјална помош, а со тоа и право на глас. Луѓе мои, ако мислите дека е ова научна фантастика, погледнете го филмот од пред 20 години, се вика Бандите од Њујорк, каде еден демократ стои пред бродовите од кај што искача, нели, мигрантине, им дава леп пари и ливче за овие да гласаш, додека го бомбардираат Њујорк, затоа што се буниот и неќе да иде во војна, кога е граѓанската војна. Истото се случува сега. Зошто? Затоа што знаат дека стока заборава и мисли само у моментот. Ама ние сме добри, ние треба да ги толерираме. Никој никогаш не повел војна крстоносна да ги става у фургони. И оние со джендер ориентации, и оние што се мигранти. Туку тоа да биде легален процес, како и секој од вас. Прашајте ги македонците како станале граѓани citizenship на United States. Крв пропљукале. Уопште не е едноставно. Додека да дојдеш до пасош. Австралија, Германија. И тоа како треба да се покажеш дека си лојален граѓанин, дека го знаеш јазикот, историјата, дека ја почитуваш земјата. Овие отворија граница. 30 милиони се внесени затоа што не се глупи. Нивните статистики покажуваат дека на народот во Соединетите Американски држави, а тоа се американци. А американци, меѓу американците се и многу македонци, кои се отидени заради булшитот овде, да направат. Сега булшит им се дешава таму. Трамп не е идеално решение, но Трамп е единствен со кохонјес кој е спремен да им се спротистави на тие радикални политики, кои се повеќе буквално фашистичко-комунистички. Како ги ставам овие два збора кои се спротиставени? Не се. И фашизмот, и комунизмот се два вида на една пара, две лица на една пара. Тоа е тоталитаризам. Државата да контролира, да те контролира што ќе мислиш, како ќе мислиш, што ќе јадеш, што ќе пиеш, да ти ги контролира парите. Затоа нив им требаат мигранти, затоа што ќе им бидат вечно благодарни, особено криминалци, кои на повик ќе може да отидат и мамицата да ја расплакуваат на секаде. Ние го имавме тоа. Колкумина беа пуштени од затвор 2017 за да одржуваат она што се одржуваше. Ова е некоја од инаугурациите, не е ни битно чија и кога. Вака се надевам дека повторно Трамп ќе го видам. Ја, за жал, моите време овдека на ТВ Сонце е ограничено, но јас ќе правам стрим, ќе коментирам, ќе јадам бурек. Дали ќе биде со мене еден или никој, не ми е важно. Важно да оставам трага. Јас сум у моите броени години и сакам мирно да испуштам душа без оглед на тоа дали ќе сгрешам и утре ќе ги имам последиците. Знаете, и нашите светци, кога се залагале, ова не е за Христос, но е за праведност. Пак е за нешто што има семени, цивилизацијски, културни, религиозни вредности, без оглед на која и религија и да припаѓа. Драги мои пријатели и пријателки, ако, драги мои македонци, се мислите за кого да гласате, барем овој последниот, а верувам дека вие што сте диаспора, немате многу времена секој ден да јадете бурек како мене, да гледате што кој кажал, како кажал, си работите вредно, си гледате и така натаму. Но сега е време, бидејќи не мораш да се плашиш, бидејќи кога ќе отидеш позади параванот, никој не може да знае за кого си гласал, ни таму, ни тука. Глумете, бидете лукави, ако ве подмитуваат, земете пари за едни и за други, не мора да страдате, не мора да ви го знаат ставот, не мора да мафтате со знаме за Трамп, но гласајте. Ако сте неодлучни, гласајте за Трамп подобро. Затоа што таму не може да излезе такво зло какво што се спрема овде. Трамп еднаш спречи уште поголема ескалација. Се одложи и короната и војната во Украина. А со Трамп таа ќе биде веднаш завршена. Што ми е важно мене, што се случува во Израел со Палестина, со Иран, со Тајван, со Русија и Украина. Еве ќе ви кажам зошто ми е важно. Затоа што кога ќе се релаксираат воените жаришта, што се случува? Расте трговијата, расте производството, луѓето се опуштени, пари наместо за оружје идат за бизниси, патување, иновации, шопинзи, 300 човек. Оно што животот ни го прави убав. Се сеќавате во 80-ти години, што златно време беше. Зошто беше златно време? Затоа што истокот и западот се релаксираа крајно и се чувствуваше дека нема да има војна. Стануваа се поблиски. Ние патувавме низ цела Европа кај сакаш без проблем. Трговија, бизнис, камче, сегде, отиди ваму, направи пари, врати се дома, отвори бизнис, затвори бизнис, терај друго. Тоа ми треба. Да почувствуваат утре и нашите внуци малце живот, а не оваква тензија, силување на секој ќош, дрога сегде, банди. Во Париз пред некој ден, 2 банди, 100 души саат време се препукувало. Полиција на вака, кмичи, не смее да писне. Во Њујорк полиција не смее да ги погледне попреку мигрантите. И да тепаат, прават што сакаат. Викам, од каде ли сила? Тоа е све инструирано. Све е тоа подбуцнато, кажано име. И они се свесни дека каков и криминал да направат, NGO-ата стојат да ги прогласат за маченици, за страдалници, бидејќи небитно е дали си го прекршил законот. Луѓе мои, како влегувате у други држави? Какви пасошки контроли имате? Да, за вас, културни, цивилизацијски луѓе, кои идете со пари, идете со пасош, кои крваво сте го заработиле, со своји крваво заработени пари. Иде идиотот, излегол од затвор, доаѓа пешки, се намачил кутриот. Баш му е гајле. Доаѓа на аеродром Орли и врши голема нужда насред неја. Никој не смее да му писне. Потоа и се джитка на девојка, гледаат и чутат. Ама немој така. Го носат на суд, види оне од нецивилизирано, па не разбира овие работи. Никогаш не било поперверзно време. Ете, затоа треба нешто да се направи. Не дека ја некого ќе убедам, не дека тебе, Сонце и Џорџ и оваа порака негдека ќе стигне. Ја ви реков, 90% од македонците се у подрум сега. Ставаат у Германија, у Канада, у Америка. Зелката дал ке стасала. Чути, прај, трајче, Мирче, седи мадро, да не се замериш. Епа има кои се спремни да се замерат. Затоа што си ги сакаат своите деца. Никогаш повеќе не сум добил писма да им се обратам. И тоа јавно да направам емисии и направив неколку такви. Наши луѓе од Канада и пред се од Австралија планираат да се вратат во Македонија. Млади со мали деца. Зошто? Века све е убаво. И работа, и стандард, и све е прекрасно. Ама тоа што им го прават на моите деца, не можам веќе да го толерирам. Очигледно дека повеќето од македонците го дозволуваат тоа, но има се повеќе кои имаат отпор. Не е важно колку мина сте. Важно е да бидете на праведната страна. Тоа е моето мото. Ја за себе зборам. Не можам никого да убедам и нема никого да убедам. А вие, со својата совест, дали ќе гласате од совест за општо добро, христијански, или ќе гласате од лична злоба, затоа што мразите некого. Јас сум за бизнис, јас сум за поголеми плати, јас сум за порелаксиран свет. Подобро на сите, подобро на мене. Како не, мислам, многу е себична мојата желба. Барам мир у светот, како оние мис, што кога држат говори, јас сум мис на Македонија, сакам мир во светот. Да, јас сакам мир во светот. Затоа што мир во светот ќе значи поголем просперитет. Поголем просперитет, поише пари. Поише пари, подобар стандард. Подобар стандард, подобро здравствено осигурување, подобро школство, подобро се, почист воздух, повеќе идење на одмор. Буквално е така. Како тоа не го чувствувате во своите коски, во ДНК? Утре се гласа во САД и нормално е македонската диаспора да е во подрум. Смоквица вика, Јанко, тонот е многу слаб. Тонот е окей од кај мене, но ја имам цензор кој работел за Шилегов и Шилегов се јави и рече, слушај, стиши го тој, да не разбера, то ти после заушки ќе јадеш кога ќе се вратам ја пак за градоначалник. Се шегувам. Тонот е извореден, ворете, жал ми е ако не се слуша, но тоа е тоа. Она што сега ве поканувам, значи сврти го 2-3 круга повикот од Џорџ, од нашава телевизија, па и од мене лично. Ако не пишува Јанко тамо, јас ви кажа, гласајте за Доналд Трамп, гласајте пред се за Елон Маск, мене ми е. Да го видам Елон Маск во власта, yes. Знам што да очекувам од Доналд Трамп, знам што ќе прави. Ама што ќе направи Елон Маск? Вау! Поздрав од мене, со Господ напред. А сега молим те, 2-3 круга сврти со повикот и потоа пушти го документарецот за изборите во Соединетите Американски држави, кој јас со надчовечански напори успеав да ви го преведам, да го приспособам и да го пуштам. Додека не дошле од Светата инквизиција радиофонична да ни испотепаат овдека со хебли што идеме антипрогресивно. Поздрав!
Македонскиот бизнисмен Ѓорѓија Ѓорче Атанасовски ги повикува сите македонци кои имаат американски пасош да гласаат за идниот американски председател Доналд Трамп на предстојните председателски избори во САД. Македонскиот бизнисмен Ѓорѓија Ѓорче Атанасовски ги повикува сите македонци кои имаат американски пасош да гласаат за идниот американски председател Доналд Трамп на предстојните председателски избори во САД.
The only poll that matters is the one on election day, and the only ballots that matter should be the ones cast legally. We're fed up with the fraud, fed up with the media's lies, and fed up with elections being unfair and unfree. But the good news is American Rights Alliance is doing something about it. And even better, your help could get you paid. So keep your eyes open, be aware of what's happening, and if you have vital information about voter fraud, let us know. And you can receive up to a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of vote cheats. Yes, that's right, up to a $50,000 reward. Together, we're stopping the fraud once and for all, but we need your help. So again, if you have information about voter fraud, let us know, and you could receive a reward up to $50,000. Preserve the vote, protect the ballot, save America. Learn more at AmericanRightsAlliance.org. American Rights Alliance paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising.
And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
to watch the onslaught of the media, the attacks on my father, the abject lies. It is an onslaught unlike anything I've ever seen before.
The media makes my grandpa seem like a different person, but I know him for who he is.
Donald Trump is a great threat to our democracy.
Donald Trump is the greatest threat the world faces.
And he has to be eliminated.
We're going to have to go out and put a bullet in Donald Trump.
When was the last time an actor assassinated a president?
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
For the past 4 years, this president has shown us that he is a misogynist, that he is homophobic, that he is racist.
You want me to tell you something about Donald Trump that the media doesn't know? How about this? He's a wonderful human being. For the people that don't realize that, I'm here to tell you, I've known the man for over 35 years, and he's one of the greatest people I've ever met. The way he's been demonized is totally, completely opposite of who he is.
I have seen him fight for his employees. I have seen him fight for his company. And now I am seeing him fight for our country.
I always joke with people that, perhaps his biggest political liability is actually that he actually has a lot of empathy. He's done a lot of incredible things for a lot of people, but he's not willing to actually go out there and even talk about it, not take credit for it.
Well, I know the president is my great friend for 20 years, so I have 2 decades with him. He is one of the most interesting, complex, fascinating people that I've ever met.
My father's a man who has a heart of gold. And it's a side that a lot of America does see, and it's sometimes a side that the media doesn't want you to see. He showed up at Grandfather Day at my daughter's school, and she ends up seeing him, runs over, gives his leg the biggest hug, sits in one of the little baby seats right next to her desk, and no one can believe it. Here's the former president of the United States in the kindergarten class.
With all the things going on in the world, he had no place else he would rather be than right there with his granddaughter in her pre-K class. That's who Donald Trump is.
It's just adorable. I mean, he absolutely loves his grandkids.
I believe part of the reason that he's put himself through all that he's been through the hell, through the impeachments, through the indictments, an assassin's bullet, all of it, and is continuing to fight on despite all of the craziness, is for them. It's for his grandkids. It's for your grandkids, your children, future generations of this country.
My grandpa, he is one of the most kindest, special person, even though he's struggling with a lot of the stuff he gets from the media. But that doesn't really bother him at all. He takes really good care of all his family members. He's always there for his family members. Yes, he was the president of the United States, and I think he did an amazing job, but to me, he's just really my grandfather. We do normal things together. We go out and play golf when there's no cameras around, and we hang out. He's just like a normal person to me.
I think my dad as a kid was definitely the troublemaker. He grew up in a loving household, but old school, tough. My grandfather, Fred Trump, sort of Germanic, the son of immigrants who immigrated here a couple years before. His father literally went to go make a living during the gold rush up into the Yukon territories and passed away when my grandfather was very young. He was the man of the house. He became the man of the house at 12, 13 years old when his father passed away. The relationship with my grandmother, it was the opposite. She was that loving, nurturing side, sort of the antithesis of his dad.
My grandmother had incredible backbone and really a force to be reckoned with. She was a remarkable, elegant, sophisticated yet loving person.
So my father sort of got the best of all worlds. He got sort of the drive from my grandfather. He got the personality from my grandmother. She was wicked funny. That created a pretty unstoppable combination for all of the things that he wanted to do.
He had a very alpha personality and always had tremendous work ethic. He wanted to achieve it. And I think a lot of his childhood kind of mirrored that life of his, which is whatever I decide to put my mind to, I want to be the best at. I want to conquer it.
But it was that regimented structure that my father grew up in. So he may have been, the troublemaker gluing his brother's blocks together. The parents said, okay, like, we're sending you to military school. He got sent away to sort of military boarding school for his high school years. And I think that sort of channeled all of that energy and focus into something.
The year that I know him best was the year that we were both 17 years old. That's when we lived together in the barracks. I mean, he was just one of these people that you worked really hard for because you never wanted to disappoint him. Not like the other captains where you worked hard for them because you were afraid of them. This man always had an even keel, was sensible, and always was doing what was in the best interests of the Corps. He was the kind of guy that had your back and cared about you. It didn't matter who you were. So everyone in the company, captains near the front door, giving out the mail. Well, when it came to Donald Trump, he knew, he kept it in his head that that fellow over there hasn't gotten anything from anybody for 2 months. Because, letters from home, cookies from mom, we got that stuff. But there was some that didn't. And he always knew who it was, and he always had the right thing to say that make everybody, especially that person who was abandoned by his parents, a happier person.
He comes out of that, goes to Wharton Business School. Then my dad decides to change the skyline of Manhattan, and he was able to do that.
The world is made up of people with either killer instincts or without killer instincts. But the people that seem to emerge are the people that are competitive and driven and with a certain instinct to win.
My grandfather gave my father, I believe it was a small loan to basically build Trump Tower. My grandfather was not necessarily thrilled about any of it. He was building middle-income housing in Queens, and it was simple. And to do a gilded tower in the early 80s, that was different. That was unique.
People love to say Donald Trump got a head start with his father. Well, you know what? Everybody starts somewhere. But he knew that what he was doing with his father, he could take and amplify, but he knew that was going to take a lot of hard work to try and make himself a name and put his name on the side of buildings. It is frightening to go out on your own, to break off from a family business, to start a company on your own, to start it in New York City. That's the mecca of everything in the business world.
My grandfather gave my dad that loan to do that, but he'd be on the job sites before anyone, making sure, wondering what was going on, questioning my father. My mom told me about some sort of, let's call it knockout, drag-out, verbal brawls between, my father and my grandfather.
If I'm going to dive into real estate, I want to go big. I want to get out of Brooklyn and Queens. I want to go into Manhattan. I no longer want to use bricks as a primary material. I want to use the most expensive glass. I want to redefine what luxury is.
I knew him as a businessman, an iconic individual that was revered worldwide for his entrepreneurship, his focus, his dedication, his tenacity to be able to get things done. He's always about the mission focus and achieving that goal, even if it appeared to be insurmountable.
My father did some incredible things, but he also experienced some pretty significant hardship, at least business-wise. In the early 90s, during that real estate recession, that was a time where banks were foreclosing on everything, and people declared bankruptcy or took the easy way out. And my father's fight that you see, he was never going to do that.
When the world fell apart, we were able to go in and find opportunities like we'd never seen before.
More rip-offs. The savings and loan scandal could cost $500 billion. But in Washington, the big question still is, who gets the blame?
Who knows better about hard times than me? I had a company, it was doing well. I had tremendous debt like this country. And in 1990, the whole country, it just went very, very bad.
Summer night. Don't be no fun. Don't forget you're young.
He says, I've seen some of the greatest business minds in the world and some of the smartest people I know never achieve because they gave up. You can never quit. You can never give up. And I think that's been his mantra. And Donald Trump really is the epitome of never giving up.
With construction workers, he'd get to know those people really well. I think there was a reason my dad was able to relate to regular Americans. The billionaire from Manhattan in the gilded office, but the reality, he was a great developer because he actually spent time with the workers and he listened to them.
He would ask people on the work level what their thoughts were, ideas, concepts, designs. There was almost like a Socratic sort of first principles type of way he questioned people, trying to reduce complex things to something really fundamental.
He always wanted to go to the people who were actually the doers. That's where Donald Trump always got his information, and those people always loved my father. They always respected him. To them, he epitomized the American dream. He epitomized success. He epitomized what they could be, the lifestyle maybe they wanted to live. Those were his people, and those people stay with him today. My mom was the ultimate compliment for my father. He was a all-American meat and potatoes type guy, and she was very old world, European, very different. She did so many things well. She was a world-class skier. She was a fashion icon.
You have to have a confidence. You also have to have a fairly good body.
This is a woman who had lived amazing life in her own right, escaped communism.
She was a great business mind. She was a great mother to obviously all of us.
You have that Eastern European toughness and that American tenacity from President Trump. And it kind of created these perfect examples of kids that know how to be loving, but know how to be tough.
The media loved her. The media loved them. They became such a formidable force. They became such an unbelievable pair.
She was able to push him the right way. Calm down. We're going to get this going. We're going to do it right. You can come in and do your thing, but focus on that next deal. I'll clean up the mess. I'll organize.
She put so much elegance on so many of the projects and certainly put her mark, and a mark that still lasts in the company today. And they were the ultimate power couple.
I was born on New Year's Eve of 1977, and as she's going into labor, he basically told her, listen, if you get him out before midnight, I'm going to send the limo to pick you up. Otherwise, you're taking the taxi home. The joke being that he could get the full year write-off. It was like $300 at the time, right? But he could get the full year tax deduction for a dependent if I was born before New Year's Day.
He made us work at a really young age. We were 11, 12 years old, and we started working on our construction sites, and we'd be running conduit or doing everything that you could possibly imagine. His kids were spoiled. We lived in Trump Tower. We went to Mar-a-Lago on weekends, but at the same time, he wanted us to have real skills. He wanted us to understand the value of a dollar. He wanted us to understand how money was created, how hard it was to actually earn, why you never squander it. The best lessons of my life have come working for the guys who, many of whom actually work for me today. They taught us the skills we needed to be good at real estate and to survive in that world. And a lot of those people, I think, gave us the fight that we have today.
As children growing up, the number one thing was, no smoking, no drinking, no drugs, and don't trust anyone.
And by the way, you better get good grades.
I was the guy that coined the phrase for him as the blue-collar billionaire. And people were like, that's ridiculous. But when you break him down, he's actually just a regular guy. He's a great athlete, loves to watch sports. He'll sit there, eat a pizza in bed, watching a ball game. That's sort of his happy place.
My father was the guy, no matter what, always picked up the phone. And he's still like that today.
Months after it opened, the Taj Mahal missed one of its debt payments, and Trump began looking for a bailout.
His empire could be at risk of collapse if the New Jersey Casino Commission decides not to approve Trump's bailout plan.
He said, I think Donald Trump is an artful liar. I think he is a greedy, vicious, and arrogant man.
Well, I don't know, is that supposed to be a compliment or not?
He's done a lot of incredible things for a lot of people, but he's not willing to actually go out there and even talk about it.
The Wallman skating rink in Central Park is open again. The city spent nearly 6 years and $12 million trying to fix it. And then to the rescue, developer Donald Trump. As Tracy Egan tells us now, he accomplished in 3.5 months what the city couldn't do in 6 years.
He had this incredible capacity for generosity, jumping in to save ice skating in New York for the children.
You performed a great public service.
The amount of stories that we have of the things that he's done that have changed people's lives forever that he just won't even talk about, won't even acknowledge with us, is sort of amazing.
I first met then the Donald in 1990. I had a residency at Trump Castle in Atlantic City. I walked up and I go, Mr. Trump, Frank Stallone. Hey, Frank, how are you? Welcome to Trump. Couldn't have been nicer. My mother was an astrologist, so she wrote this book called Star Power. And she went to Atlantic City to sell her books or promote her books. And Donald Trump found out about it. And I think he bought 200 books and gave them out to the employees.
The farm's been in our family for 5 generations with my dad. Started in 1982 with drought, but it went 3 consecutive years, so he was $300,000 in debt. So it's going to go before the courthouse. Normally on Wednesdays, my mom would go grocery shopping, and he said, please don't go this morning. So she felt something was wrong, but she stayed. And then 20 minutes before the courthouse of the foreclosure of the farm, she heard a gunshot, and he shot himself. It was on the news, and that just happened to be the news that Trump watched. So he was watching it with his first wife, Ivana, and he just said to her, somebody needs to really help this family to save this farm. And she said to him, why don't you do it? So he did.
And I paid off our mortgage. Big deal, right?
He didn't know us. He didn't have to do any of this. He did it out of the kindness of his heart. Now, what I want y'all to know is how kind-hearted and caring he is. He cares about America. He cares about farmers. He cares about veterans.
I was assigned to investigate a serial rapist that was attacking women on the Upper East Side of New York. There were 16 women who were attacked, and we desperately wanted to catch this guy. We wanted to do a mailing, which was a flyer and suspect information, to the neighborhood. The department couldn't afford to do that mailing. It was very expensive. It was $40,000. And I contacted Donald Trump. Within 2 days, Donald Trump said that he would give the money. Willingly and without a blink of an eye, he stood up to support not only the cops, the detectives, but more importantly, the women who were attacked at gunpoint by this rapist. And he didn't seek credit. He didn't seek anything from it. He didn't seek publicity at all. I mean, I thought it was just a very noble thing for somebody to do.
I was Miss Wisconsin USA in 2005. I just want to say thank you. You saved me in so many ways. I've been struggling with an incurable illness, and I wanted to thank you because through you and your organizations provided my son, who is Mexican-American, 7 years old, when he graduates high school with a full ride to college.
Businessman Donald Trump married former model Melania Knauss at the Bethesda by the Sea Episcopal Church in Palm Beach, Florida.
The relationship my father has with Melania is unparalleled.
We had a great chemistry when we met in 1998.
She's been incredibly supportive. He values her tremendously. He values her opinions tremendously. She's very direct, which is always fun to watch. He's an incredible doer, but he's also an incredible showman. It's beyond being part of Hollywood. I want to dominate Hollywood. I want to have the longest running show on reality TV.
And he could. It was very natural for him. It was easy for him to do it. He's been doing that essentially his whole life. I think he had the perfect combination of serious business person, but humor, wit, more importantly, I think relatability and authenticity. Whether you like him or not, he is who he is, and the show made him relatable to the American populace.
He's always had an amazing voice. He's always had a strong voice, and he's always had an incredible following. He was always on the front page. He always had that charisma or that spark.
The evolution from business into entertainment, which was still business, into politics was sort of this natural role.
It's a shame what's happening. Japan, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, everybody's taking advantage of the United States. People know that if certain people are running a country, that it won't happen.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off.
I can't tell you how many times I've been in the room with my father where he'd be reading a paper. And he'd look down, I can't believe this is America. You know, the United States is 30th in the world in education. He'd look at me, how the hell can we be 30th in the world in education? We're in the United States of America. We should be #1 in education. We should be #1 at absolutely everything we do, because we're the United States of America, and that's what's expected of the greatest superpower in the world. He's sitting there shaking his head saying, how the hell can we do this? I mean, this is a country where literally on the streets of Tehran, they're chanting death to America, and we have an administration who's giving $150 billion to Iran. Things like that fundamentally bothered him. They bothered him in a massive way. I truly believe if we had competent leadership in this country, he would have never run for president.
One of the true sort of rare moments of emotional clarity was the day my father announced. Before the infamous escalator ride down to make his announcement speech, there was an elevator ride. As the doors are closing, he just said, now we find out who our real friends are.
And we're going to get hit in ways that we could never possibly imagine.
He knew he was going to break some eggs, and man, was he ever right.
Well, you need somebody, because politicians are all talk, no action. Nothing's going to get done. They will not bring us, believe me, to the promised land.
You know, we always talked about what the deep state was. We always talked about drain the swamp. Everybody's heard those words, and get rid of the old, put in some new thinking.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
My father was thinking, I don't want to go into office and become a mayor or a congressman. I mean, I want to go in, and my first trial, I want to become president of the United States of America. You know, forget the fact that I've never done it on any level. I want to go for the ultimate prize.
But if I get elected president, I will bring it back bigger and better and stronger than ever before, and we will make America great again.
When I saw Donald Trump come down, I went, oh, heck, it's on now. Knowing where Donald's at as far as business and cunning and cutting deals, and I started thinking, boy, he's in for it now. I hope he realizes what he's getting into. You know, he's so popular, and he's got this built-in following. He's going to win.
He has been successful in his own right. He could have retired, played golf for the rest of his life, was the most stunning wife by his side. But instead, he decided to fight for this country, fight for his family and the future of his grandkids.
Making that decision, and I know a lot about politics, is an incredibly difficult one, because you lose yourself, you lose your life, you lose in some way part of your identity, because people try to shape you, they try to vilify you. He did it because he can't stand to see things not done the right way. He's not the type of person to stand by on the sidelines and see a 10-car pileup. It was incumbent upon him to give back, to do something to save this country, because this is a man who didn't just live the American dream, he defined it and he owned it.
He knew if he came out and he said what he needed to say and did the things he needed to do to run for president, some people were not going to like it.
I'll never forget that when we got back upstairs, we were all on cloud 9, because we're thinking, This was the greatest speech ever. The intern that we had left kind of answering the phone was like in tears. Companies are canceling contracts left and right. She's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. Watching Eric, Ivanka, and Don sort of mobilize. They immediately jumped on the phone and started trying to figure out what was going on. To see them go from sort of panic to suddenly game on. This is a family who I've had the honor of seeing embraced by the world to suddenly seeing them be pariahs, outcasts.
The people that were friends for life, and people, 3 weeks ago we had dinner with him, but now he's on the Republican ticket, and now he said some things that are true, but maybe tough. He knew it was going to happen, and he did it anyway.
You never want phony people around you, and those that have remained by our side and are still our friends today, those are the real ones. Those are the true people.
Donald Trump is here tonight. Obviously, we all know about your credentials and breadth of experience.
I quite forget the moment at the White House Correspondents' Dinner where my father's sitting there. Barack Obama gets up on the stage and starts cracking jokes.
Say what you will about Mr. Trump, he certainly would bring some change to the White House.
And there's one person in this room that will never be president, and that's Donald Trump. Looking at my father, I could see his competitive spirits. Don't tell him he can't accomplish something. Don't tell him he can't achieve something. I can't tell you how many people have lost serious money betting against Donald Trump.
My kind of country has a Trump and her JFK. An NAACP and an NRA.
One of the things I love and admire so much about President Trump is he really has a unique ability to inspire people.
I've never supported a president my whole entire life like I have with this one.
I really, truly think that he's doing a good job, and that's why we all want to be out here and show our support for him.
We're here to support Donald J. Trump.
That's what he does. So when you go to these rallies and you see people stand out in the rain,
I mean, I think it's super important to come out and support our president right now. Nobody else is, so we have to.
which is what's made him one of the most inspirational figures that we have seen in this country. And that is why people will always stand and fight for President Trump.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
Here was a guy who probably knew them a little too well for their comfort level, knew the promises that they make to people to get the big money out of them.
He has not paid a penny in federal income tax.
All of her donors, just about all of them. I know Buffett took hundreds of millions of dollars. Soros, George Soros, took hundreds of millions of dollars. Let me just explain. All of her donors, most of her donors have done the same thing as I did.
Okay. And then all of a sudden, 17 people running for president every day. One would fall, the next one would fall. And the amazing thing to me about every one of those people on stage were career politicians. He wasn't a politician at all. It's the it factor. It's like almost like a Muhammad Ali. No matter who he's fighting, he could get into your head, and then you're going, uh-oh, maybe I am in trouble here. He's like an immovable train. That's why they call it the Trump train. He's like the Teflon Don. You can't get to him. I mean, what's he sleep, 3 hours a day? So he's constantly moving ideas. He's a Gemini. He's two people. He's the twins. So he can multitask like nobody's business. And, you know, at his age, young people say, I can't keep up with him.
The best piece of advice my grandpa always gave me was always stay away from drugs and alcohol. His brother Fred passed away from it.
I had a brother, Fred. He had a problem with alcohol. And he would tell me, don't drink, don't drink. He was substantially older, and I listened to him. And to this day, I've never had a drink. But he really helped me. I had somebody that guided me. And he had a very, very, very tough life because of alcohol, believe me.
He never wanted to go through that ever again with any of us, and I would never do any of that stuff either, just because I've seen what it has done to my family.
Immigrants on the whole
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead.
Trump's very media savvy. I mean, he's hilarious. Honestly, like I could never get enough of watching a Trump interview or a Trump rally. He's the most entertaining guy.
The late, great Hannibal Lecter is a wonderful man. He oftentimes would have a friend for dinner.
He's kind of like that uncle at Thanksgiving.
This is a tough business to
yeah.
run for
I know.
president.
You're a tough guy, Jeb.
He says what is on everyone's mind, whether it's controversial or not, or it might offend some people or hurt some people. It's the truth, right?
We need law and order, and we need law and order in the inner cities.
I think people get a little bit tired of politicians who BS them with tired talking points, with political platitudes that are quite frankly insulting to everyday hardworking men and women in this country.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
What became very refreshing about Donald Trump is the fact that he kind of talked like we all talked. Man, he was not a politician when he went out and announced he was running for president. And he said, no, I'm not going to read some pre-scripted speech for me. I'm going to talk straight to the American people, and I'm going to talk about the problems that no one is addressing, that no one has the guts, quite frankly, to bring up to you, but I will do it.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime.
People were like, this is what we need. You need a cheerleader for America. You need somebody who believes in this country and is going to fight for this country. They were done with the elites in the political class talking down to them instead of talking with them. And that really resonated with people.
Never are you ever going to be able to predict him. Never are you going to be able to put him in a box. He's completely multifaceted, and it's like watching a movie that you can't take your eyes off of.
12,000 people still coming in. They're going to take 3 people and say, oh, the protests were unbelievable.
He doesn't fit into any of these traditional categories, which makes him someone who is a little bit frightening. Someone who thinks outside the box. Someone who is a disruptor. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge authority can be terrifying to people that want to maintain control.
Donald Trump has been perhaps the most vulgar, no, I don't think perhaps, the most vulgar person to ever aspire to the presidency.
He's a wrecking ball when it comes to policy, and the way he's engaged the public is hurting the Republican Party.
The simple fact is he doesn't have a plan. He's not a serious candidate.
I think the play was, let's knock this guy out early. This is ridiculous. Donald Trump will never be president of the United States. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a politician. And they thought that if they went hard after him in those first couple of weeks, that it would absolutely decimate him. And he'd be like, oh, I can't do it. This is too much for me. Little did they know, that is not Donald Trump.
Donald Trump seems to have elevated political trolling to an art form. His preferred medium, Twitter. Day and night, Trump baits, criticizes, and antagonizes his rivals.
He fights, he's combative. Tone it down a little bit. How does that go over?
Well, we could see it.
Some people go, oh, I don't like his tweets. I do. Maybe because I grew up in show business and I'm somewhat sarcastic myself. I find it funny.
Watching a media that had been so friendly to him that he'd had a great relationship with just turn on a dime. They're not journalists anymore. They're simply regime propagandists.
This was a media that loved him. They would have lunch with us in Trump Tower. They would come to Mar-a-Lago. They'd be in his office.
Excuse me, where's the lobby?
Down the hall and to the left.
Thanks.
This was a man that was in Home Alone. This was a man that was loved by Whoopi Goldberg.
She even put me in a movie.
I was just going to say.
She put me in a movies,
yes,
right?
we
A
are
long time ago.
friends.
And how much did I charge? Nothing.
Like they say in the
It was a freebie.
He was asked to be in every Pizza Hut commercial. My father kept NBC alive with The Apprentice. They were dying. They had no shows. The other networks were eating them alive. And the minute he went down that escalator, those people turned their backs. It was a light switch. You can never believe that somebody could turn on somebody so quickly for simply affiliating themselves with a different party.
At the end of the day, he's in the fight for his life. He's in the fight to save this country, to save our way of life.
And the only way I can see it fix is to rid ourselves of these politics. Drain the swamp, smoke them out, bleed them. But if you still believe in America,
I don't understand where now Make America Great Again, why people vilify that. You're an American. It's supposed to be America first.
Donald doesn't want to go back to the way it was. He wants to go to the way it should be. If we put God first again, if we put it in our schools, our homes, Jesus Christ says that if you repent, I will heal the land and heal the people.
My father's political evolution was sort of an interesting one. If you go back, you can see him in the 1980s. He was always on point. Same thing. He's like, hey, other countries are taking advantage of us in trade. America's getting ripped off. Our politicians are incompetent. He'd been talking about these issues for 30 years.
I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. Why aren't these countries, these wealthy money machines, paying us for the defense of their freedom and their nations? I'd make our allies pay their fair share. Kuwait, they live like kings. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
There's virtually nothing he said in any interview dating back 20 years that didn't materialize. Going back to the construction worker and the electrician and all the people that my father knew so well, he figured out in politics that government was leaving behind everyday Americans. And we were losing our jobs, we were losing our manufacturing, we were losing everything. People couldn't afford to live, people could no longer afford upward mobility. The American dream was being lost, and he saw that firsthand.
More and more products acceptable to the more and more exacting demands of more and more Americans.
We're from the same era. When I grew up in the 50s, everything was made here. TVs, radios, washing machines, cars, everyone had jobs. He saw everything being tossed out of this country.
He was disgruntled because he felt the average American worker was getting taken advantage of. They were getting the shaft because of the policies that benefited so many of the rich.
And he came out and said, listen, you're not going to be forgotten about. I'm going to be your voice. You're going to have representation in Washington, D.C. I don't care about these lobbyists. I don't need their money. I can't be bribed. I can't be coerced.
And when Bush gets $100 million plus, and when Hillary gets $50 million plus, every one of those people that put up money will control Bush.
My father's a man of action. You can only talk smack from the sidelines for so long before you actually have to get in the game.
We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
He's just a man speaking the truth to all of us. And for anybody else that doesn't understand that, you're voting for the end of America.
You have people coming through the border that are from all over, and they're bad. They're really bad.
July 12, 2012, my only child, my son Dominic, my best friend, called himself German Chocolate, was on his way to work for the Sheriff's Department as a 911 dispatcher, and he was hit head-on by an illegal alien with 2 felony convictions, 2 DUIs, and 5:45 a.m. My son's brilliant life ended, and my nightmare started. The media stayed away. Nobody wanted to talk about Dominic. After his death, it was just a void in my life. I started to become suicidal. I didn't want to live anymore without him. I got a call from the Trump campaign, and they said that Donald Trump, the candidate, would love to meet me. And as I was telling him about losing my best friend, I could see him tear up, and he asked us to come with him. We walk in the room, and there's media all over, and he taps me on my shoulder, and he says, "Go ahead, honey, tell your story." And all of a sudden, I felt my son's hands on my shoulders like he was behind me and said, "Now, Mom, now or never." And I shared his story, and I shared what an amazing man he was. Donald Trump didn't just save my life. He helped me share my Dominic. And now the world knows Dom's mom.
Donald Trump is truly the definition of the American dream for a lot of people. He was written about in rap songs.
Take over the world when I'm on my Donald Trump. Look at all this money, ain't that some?
Donald Trump is what Americans aspire to be. Rich, powerful, do what you want to do, say what you want to say. The American dream.
I've worked for the Trump family for about 17 years now. I started off as a personal assistant for Eric Trump and ended up running his charity for St. Jude called the Eric Trump Foundation at the time. Working for the Trump family, we quickly became very close. And over the years, we started to establish a deep, deep trust. It starts off with, Lynn, do you think this tie looks good? To Lynn, you know, what do you think of this carpeting? To Lynn, I'm going to run for president of the United States. So the transformation going from basically a staffer in their office to truly becoming a friend and then a part of the family was something that I never anticipated, but they made me feel like I belonged with them from day one.
Hillary Clinton unloading on Donald Trump, saying, quote, he is taking hate groups mainstream.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
Trump thinks he can win votes by fanning the flames of fear and hatred.
Advocating racist ideas.
Donald Trump has built his campaign on prejudice and paranoia. When people ask me, especially as a Black female, how can you work for this racist, this misogynist for as long as you have? And I have to always begin by saying that racist people raise racist children. Bigotry is taught.
When I met him, he touched me with strong, you know, I'm Donald J. Trump. Then I stood by his daughter, Ivanka, and it was time to pray. And I say, let me test it again. We were holding hands. She reached out for my hand and she said, let's pray. And she held my hand. I say, a racist man's child would never.
As a Black person, you spend your whole life detecting even the most subtle hints of racism. That is something that I can genuinely say I have never experienced in the 16, 17 years I've been with them.
Are you
I am the least racist person that you have ever met.
I've never heard them make a disparaging comment about Hispanics, women, Jewish people. Donald J. Trump has done more for the state of Israel than any modern day president, whether it's recognizing the sovereignty of the Golan Heights, to delivering on the 1993 promise to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and declare Jerusalem the state capital, to funding the Iron Dome, the Abraham Accords. It became evident that there were some documented hate groups that embraced Donald Trump.
In the good old days, law enforcement acted a lot quicker than this. They'd rip him out of that seat so fast.
And I remember being kind of struck by this because I'm like, what did he say or do?
They pull on the heartstrings of Black people. That's what they do because they want the vote. Black people are like, oh my God, once you tell somebody that older white man is racist, it's over. They get nervous, they get scared, and I understand. I was on that side. But once you really do your research, and it's right there in front of you, you don't have to dig deep. You'll know that Donald Trump is not a racist. We have to look at what's real and what's not. They're brainwashing us, and we need to find out the truth.
This is a man who, quite frankly, had been very close to Al Sharpton, very close to Jesse Jackson. In fact, Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition lived rent-free in one of Trump's buildings because of Donald Trump, recognizing how important that movement was. He's done more for Black Americans than any other modern-day president in my lifetime, from having the lowest Black unemployment, funding historically Black colleges, to the First Step Act, which released more than 15,000 nonviolent felons. He also banned federal no-knock warrants, banned federal chokeholds. This is a man who put me, a Black female who's worked for his family for 15, 16, 17 years, in charge of the largest housing program in the United States, which is Federal Region 2, New York and New Jersey. These are not acts of a racist.
We commemorate the return of historic Native American artifacts and sacred remains to American soil.
President, your leadership through other initiatives underscores your commitment to Indian country and Alaska Native communities. Thank you.
How long have you been working on this from the beginning, from its original start?
For at least 70 years.
70.
Yes.
I'm glad we got it done. It took 70 years, but we got it done.
Trump is the man. How has he been to you over the years? I never had a bad moment with him.
Trump is bringing the Republican Party back to where it originated, which is everybody's an American. You're not a Black American. You're not a Latino American. You're American. This is a man who does not see black or white, but rather, in my opinion, sees success or failure.
My voice is going to be heard with this president.
Your comments, your fun, whatever you're doing, I'm looking at the policies. I'm looking at what you're getting implemented. I'm looking at what you say you're going to do next.
I think what scares them is that he elevates people not based on their skin color, but because of the fact that he recognizes within you your capabilities. He saw in me something that I didn't even see in myself. He always teases me, Lynn, don't ever make me fire you because my kids will never talk to me again.
Thank you, Al. Wow. That was good. Great senators. Hi, Chuck. He used to love me when I was a Democrat, you know.
Everybody loved Trump before, right? He was the man, right? But the second he starts to threaten, you know, who really runs this stuff, it's interesting how it just flips.
Now at 11, the knockout blow. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton cruising to key victories tonight in Florida. Donald Trump claiming a dominant victory in all of the state's 99 delegates.
When he started climbing the polls, because Americans understood that he was right. That's when it became a controversy.
The questions about the Russians and do I think they're trying to help Trump?
They spent $30 million trying to find something on him. They weren't looking for Russian collusion. They knew from the beginning there was no Russian collusion. They were looking for him spitting in the subway.
If you go back and look at the timelines of when they started trying to take him out, it's when he actually gained, you know, a foothold, when he was actually a threat to the powers that be, perhaps on both sides. You know, this is a challenge to the status quo.
Trump is a phony, that Trump is a pathological liar.
They couldn't define him, they couldn't understand him, and they couldn't control him.
I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States. I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
He knew what was going to happen, and man, was he right. But we didn't think we'd be dealing with them trying to jail us. You had no idea how vicious these people could be. You know, you can sort of, you know, back in a corner and hide, or you can get out there and fight.
They're not after me, they're after you, and I just happen to be standing in their way.
His message really rattled their agenda of globalization. You'll own nothing by 2030 and you'll be happy. You won't own your own home, you won't own your own car, you know, you'll eat the food we tell you to eat. They want the country the way they want it to be. The few elites that are controlling everything in this country.
I think a lot of politicians are getting favorites, special treatment. Hey, I'd like to put up this building, but I can't get the zoning. Hey, if I give you $400,000, can you sign off the zoning? Him, you can't do that. You can't buy him. You don't have enough money to buy him.
Election night, 2016. That morning you woke up and the New York Times had you at sub 10% chance of winning.
This is where we stood coming into the night, 268 to 204, so clearly an advantage for Secretary Clinton.
They say that Donald Trump doesn't have a chance, that his poll numbers were going to be terrible, that he couldn't beat Hillary Clinton.
We project that Hillary Clinton will carry her home state.
And I'm sitting there saying, how does somebody in a studio in Times Square know more than I do when I'm sitting out there and I see the momentum and I see the people?
That night, for me, for him, it was like, we're going to overperform, but like, it was a good run. We threw everything at it, but how do you overcome the Clinton machine?
Donald Trump wins the great state of North Carolina. Donald Trump wins the great state of Florida. Donald Trump wins the great state of Pennsylvania.
Everybody take a deep breath.
Capping his improbable political journey with an astounding upset victory.
Donald Trump surpassing the 270 electoral votes. It has been a stunning night. It has been a historic night. It's one that many people simply will not believe.
November 8th was truly the greatest vindication that his message was right, that the American people adored my father, that the American people believed in our family and everything that we stood for and everything that we fought so hard for.
When he won, we were all at Trump Tower, and I just remember him winning, and then we walked on the stage and changed the course of history.
Sometimes the dog catches the car. I knew we were going to overperform. I didn't know we'd overperform by that much.
The 45th president expected to start issuing executive orders as early as today, trying to turn his campaign promises into reality.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime.
Kim Jong-il was looking at him like this, like a rock star. He's John Wayne. Putin was like, oh my God, here's the head of Russia, this dictator. And he walks up and, how you doing there, pal? Pats one's back. To me, I love that because it makes me feel safe.
We will rebuild our military and alliances, destroy terrorists, face our enemies head on.
I think his view has always been, I don't want world leaders to think I'm a nice guy. I lose leverage in the negotiation if I'm a nice guy.
Do you want someone who's going to stand up to Kim Jong-un? Do you want someone that's going to stand up to Putin? Or do you want somebody that's going to take a knee every time and leave America behind?
You came because our nation needed you, and they needed you right here. The men and women of our military are totally loyal to our country, and every day I am president, America will always be totally loyal to you.
My son loved this country very, very much, and he gave his life painfully.
You take care of him. He's looking down. He's very proud.
Thank you so much.
I was an Army veteran for 7.5 years, diagnosed with bladder cancer, stage 3. I asked the doctor, I said, you know, what are you going to do? You going to cut me here or here or what? And they're like, no, if we do that, as soon as we open you up, you're dead in 10 minutes. Is it that bad? And he said, yeah, it's bad. He goes, well, we're going to start you on a very extensive chemotherapy. And I was telling my wife, I said, we haven't even got a bill yet. So I called them, and they said, your bill's been paid. And I said, what do you mean it's my bill's been paid? I haven't made a payment on that yet. They said, you know Donald J. Trump? And she said, your bill's, it's been paid. So I owe him that. And I told Shane, one of these days, I want to meet that man, look him in the eye, shake his hand, and tell him thanks for saving my life.
That's his heart. Beautiful heart.
I heard that story, and I said, that's a story the world should hear about a great son. I didn't think you were going to be giving your money to anybody except yourself. That is a tremendous story of the love of a father by a son.
You just don't see it often.
The President of the United States pressured a foreign leader to investigate one of his leading political rivals.
The impeachments were incredibly unfair. At the same time, he knew exactly why they were doing it. They were threatened by him.
You're impeached forever. You're never getting rid of that scar.
I see the daggers. I see the impeachments. I see all this crazy stuff which they've never done to anybody else. And the empire of Donald Trump is so big and it's so powerful. No matter how bad you cut him up, no matter how many scars you put on him, you cannot destroy the man. My Lord and Savior, the most perfect man in this world, Jesus Christ, was crucified for being a good person. And Donald Trump is getting beat down and crucified simply because he's doing the right thing. He wants one nation under God. He wants God in our country. He wants God in our schools. He wants God in our homes. And for that, he's the evil one.
CNN projects Joseph R. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th president of the United States, winning the White House and denying President Trump a second term.
They knew they couldn't win, so they said, let's go to court. I've been saying this from the day I heard they were going to send out tens of millions of ballots.
Election day 2020 was filled with total disbelief, maybe anger in certain ways. We didn't lose. We had 13 million more votes the second time. There was more enthusiasm. The crowds were greater. Our country was doing great. Lowest unemployment we had ever seen. Best economy this country had ever seen. Came out of COVID stronger than the country had been going in. He had fought for this nation. He had gotten us out of wars. He had restored the economy. He had restored pride in our nation. No one believed that a person who hid in the basement for an entire campaign cycle magically got tens and tens of millions more votes than Barack Obama. If my father thought he lost fair and square, there's no way he would have run again. There's just no way.
Pardons and commutations. Sources here at the White House tell us that President Trump could issue up to 100 of them.
Young black kid from Gary, Indiana. I chose boxing. Now I'm winning all the tournaments, and then I end up getting hurt. I mean, I hate to say it, but I took a shortcut. I did something that I knew was wrong. And I started working for these Mexican guys, and you know, I was dropping off packages for them, and I broke the law and ended up getting arrested. And they sent me away for a nonviolent drug crime. My first arrest in my life, I started doing a double life sentence. I left my 2-year-old son, Charles Jr., at home with his mom. My son didn't even want to learn how to ride a bike. He said he wanted me to teach him how to ride a bike. He taught himself how to ride a bike. But in 2018, I had a dream. And I had a dream that the president was gonna be the one to let me out. 2018, he did the First Step Back bill. What people don't know is that First Step Back bill has helped over 30,000 men and women come home early from their sentence. And on October 21st, 2020, I didn't get the First Step Back. He granted me clemency before the election. I'm sitting here today because of that. The president gave me another chance, and I came home pushing fatherhood to where I was able to teach my son every action has a reaction. And I'm so thankful.
21 years ago, I was a Border Patrol agent in Eagle Pass, Texas. And me and my partner were responding to some sensor traffic. We came upon a group of 15 illegal aliens. They started running. I was yelling for them to stop, chased them for 1.5 miles, and I was losing ground. The trainee agent caught the group, and he was trying to get them to sit down. So I ran up on him, put my hand on my weapon like I was taught, and used my leg as an extension of my arm, and I pushed them, knocked them on their ass from the squatting to the sitting position. Well, apparently that move landed me in prison for 27 months because it says it violated their civil rights. I got jumped by the Mexican population in prison. In 2006, I got out of the prison. In December of 2020, I had applied for a pardon.
Gary, we wanted to wish you the very best of Christmases and let you know that the president granted you a full pardon about an hour ago. And you're kidding me! No, it's all done. You are fully pardoned.
Our great President Donald J. Trump, our 45th President of the United States, granted me a presidential pardon. And my mom was around to see it.
She's sitting right here next to me, look at me, and she's like, what happened? She's like thinking something bad's happened. Mom, the president gave me a pardon. The president gave me a pardon.
It's changed my life.
Everyone in politics, they make their promises, they say all the things they're going to do. Trump actually did those things.
I remember we landed in Palm Beach after leaving DC, and everybody was kind of quiet on the plane. We didn't really know how to feel about things. He was very down. We were all very down. And as we were getting off the plane, he turned to all of us and he said, well, kids, I got to do it again. I'm not done. This country needs me.
I worked the majority of my adult life as a prosecutor, and if they can do it to Donald Trump, they can do it to any American sitting at home watching their television. Weaponizing our most beloved institutions is something that should never be done against another American citizen in this country.
The constant onslaught of he's the greatest threat to democracy ever faced. He's worse than Hitler. He's got more indictments and more convictions than Al Capone. Whether it's, $500 million in fines here or possible, 750-year jail sentences here, and and he's playing golf, with his granddaughter, and having a conversation as though, like, nothing happened.
It's a disgrace to America. Thank you for refusing to come in long.
I've never seen my grandpa distressed or rattled, ever.
After the 34 felony counts were read out and the jury of his peers found him guilty, he was doing this press conference in Trump Tower. There he was moments before he goes down the elevator to address the press. And the only thing he cared about was hanging out with Luke and Carolina, seeing their pictures, giving them hugs, having a good time with them.
1, 2, 3, 4. When I'm gonna take it, come on. Oh, we ain't gonna take it. Oh, when I'm gonna take it. Let me go. Sing it, sing it.
We begin tonight with the passing of Ivana Trump, former President Trump's first wife and the mother of their 3 oldest children, Don Jr., Ivanka, and Eric.
The loss of my mother, that was one of the true times. I saw him at times pensive and sort of retrospective.
Obviously, as soon as I heard it, I reached out and I called him that day, and this is the first time I've ever seen that guy busted up and not good.
It was so soft and sweet and so loving when Ivana passed. And you just heart reached out to him because you could tell that he was suffering, but he wanted to be strong for everyone else.
I was in there with my kids and trying to distract them. And he came in and you could see on his face the emotion, and you could see, we all kind of gave him his space at the casket. I don't know what he said to her, but he said some things to her there. That's a love that never diminished. I believe she loved him to the day she died, and I believe the same about him.
Tabloids were trying to figure out some sort of disparaging angle of this whole thing. They had just lost their mom, but their priority and his priority were his kids. He wanted to make sure that they were okay.
The indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump.
He called me in this moment as he's on the way to have this mugshot taken, He's like, I don't know, honey, what do you think? What do you think about all this? And I was like, I think you're a badass. I think the fact that you're going in right now, you're showing up. And he was like, let me tell you, there's a lot of support out here. There are people lining the streets excited to see me. You know, I don't know really how to feel about it, but we're going to go do it and it's going to be okay. I was like, gosh, what a great attitude to have when you're on the way to have a mugshot taken, which, by the way, greatest mugshot in history. Rivals even Elvis Presley's.
When I saw you got a mugshot, it was crazy. I went online and bought one right away.
The idea of the mugshot was obviously to try to demoralize him, to try to just be, you know, as debasing, to perp walk him in and parade him in for these nonsense charges. It was sort of interesting how that all really backfired. How could you ever top that photograph? You know, defiant, strong.
Trump crushed it. He smashed the mugshot, okay? He looked amazing. He's like mean mugging it, looks gorgeous, hair is perfect. And he turns it into one of the most iconic photographs that this country has seen.
You respect Trump? I think that his gangster is ridiculous.
There is no one more gangster than Trump. I like to think that I have thick skin, but what that guy goes through on a daily basis.
It went everywhere. And a moment that was supposed to be just sort of soul crushing ended up being an exhilarating, powerful moment that helped move his whole political movement forward.
We need to get the vote behind Trump. We got to flood him in. Teaming up with RFK. We're all loving it. Calling everyone.
Did you like my mugshot? Did you like the mugshot? Lovely.
We had enough of them. World Economic Forum took over governments. Everything was going as planned till God uncovered
The biggest selling mugshot ever.
Suffering. The whole world's praying for Trump. We had enough of them. Raising up a week.
My father's mugshot stands for a system that will do anything to take out a political adversary. That mugshot's beloved by millions and millions of people.
15 acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for
I think my father's sense of humor is sometimes underappreciated.
The hostile takeover of Donald Trump on Vince McMahon. He understood what we were doing out there, and he understood that you feel the vibe and you listen to the crowd, and it's all instinct, you know. And he's got a great feel for timing.
Probably the most inappropriate was at my grandmother's, at his mother's funeral. We're there, and yeah, it's obviously an incredible, somber moment. I remember, you know, my grandmother on my mother's side, we call her Bobby, from the Czech Republic. She's still around, hanging in there at like 97. Bobby walks up, and we're all kind of, everyone, yeah. He goes, you know what, Bobby? It's rough, but, you know, you're next. Now, you know, when we see our grandmother, she's still kicking 20 years later. It's like, you know, you're next. Turns out she wasn't next.
He loved music. You know, my father always used to say that in another life he would have been a Broadway musical producer.
When I heard I was on the cover of Rolling Stone, that was an honor for me. You know, I wish I had the guitar. I wish I had that kind of talent.
You're quite friendly with President Trump.
Well, actually, yes, he's been nothing but nice to us. Very controversial figure.
Yeah.
Now he DJs at Mar-a-Lago.
I heard you're becoming quite the DJ here at Mar-a-Lago. I heard you're spinning.
You DJ? Would you believe it? I love music.
So do you actually spin, or
no?
do you,
I don't spin,
what do you
but
use?
I pick the ones I like. I don't want to.
What's your like go-to banger on the?
Well, I have a lot of them. You know what gets them rocking? YMCA.
When you look at what he's gone through, again, whether it's impeachment, whether it's them trying to break him, trying to bankrupt him, trying to jail him, trying to kill him, he's still the same guy. He's still out there fighting every day. It doesn't stop him. He doesn't let go of the gas. Just let's just see where it is. He fights. That resolve, that kept us out of wars. That resolve got us peace deals. That resolve fixed our economy. That resolve kept dictators in check. That resolve is the leadership we need as a country. When America is strong, the rest of the world is peaceful. We've seen that now. We've also seen the corollary to that. We've seen what happens when America is weak. We've seen what happens when we exude weakness, when our leaders are weak, when they're infirm, when they're incompetent. The predators will pounce. We have a chance to actually reclaim that power with someone who does have that resolve, who has that resolve quite literally under fire.
They could strip him of his company. They can strip him of his properties. Nothing is going to keep this man from fighting for this country. There's only going to be one option left to stop him. And we knew that when the lawfare didn't work, that's exactly what they were going to do.
They've tried everything to take out our family. They've tried everything to take him out.
You jump to that thought of, what can they do to try to stop him? Well, they could try to take his life.
This is a big crowd.
Don had taken his eldest daughter, Kai, out on a little daddy-daughter, fishing thing on the boat.
I was out with my daughter. We got the rare call from my 17-year-old daughter. Dad, can we go fishing? It was a Saturday afternoon. I'm like, wow, who are you and what have you done with my daughter? That doesn't happen very often.
Eric and I we were at home in New York at our house, and I was getting dinner ready for my kids. I remember holding the carrot, and I looked down to peel it, and right as I was about to look down, my daughter goes, "Oh, look who's on TV, Mom."
And I'll never forget, Luke and Carolina were on my lap, Laura was sitting next to me. We're on the couch. I was looking at my laptop, and I hear those shots, and I instantly knew what was happening.
If you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
I ran in the room with Eric, and it felt like an eternity, like everybody did. He was just on the ground, and we didn't know what was going on. For probably 45 minutes, held in my hand the carrot and the peeler, and I didn't even realize it because I was in shock.
My heart dropped and just sick to my stomach and tears in my eyes and just saying, oh dear God. But the first thing that I had to do was to call Don Jr. and tell him that his father had been shot.
I got the call, that your father had been shot. And
we heard the news that he was shot, and no one really knew for 90 minutes what happened.
Right away, I knew it was an assassination attempt. And it just upset me so bad when I saw them trying to kill our president that I lost it.
He says that he looked down at his hand and he saw the blood, and he knew he'd been shot. And all he was thinking about in that moment was letting people know that he was okay. Then he says that he looked out at people, and people were crying and they were upset, and they thought that he was dead.
If somebody takes a shot at a sitting or former president of the United States, you as an American, we're all Americans, should be pissed and disgusted that somebody tried to assassinate the president of the United States.
Instinct just kicks in. Gets shot in the face, and 5 seconds after that, he comes back defiant, ready to fight. I mean, that's my father. Man, you are the biggest badass I know. Fight, fight, fight.
The man got shot on TV. What's he do? Stood up and he goes, fight.
That moment, you can't fake that emotion at all, and it really showed how he cared for America.
See him stand up after being shot in the head and say fight because he believes in this country. He wanted all of us to see that he was okay. That did it. That changed me.
I personally thought at that moment that he won the election, because everyone knows now that they're really trying to take him out.
Fight, fight, fight. And it made me love him even more, because that's who he is. He's a fighter. He fights for us. And he's my hero. He's been my hero. And he became a superhero that moment.
It completely changed my mindset. And I went, you know what? If people like me don't speak up and quit being a coward and quit being scared and quit being silent, I told my wife, I said, I'm not suicidal. I love life. And you know what? I want to live forever, you know, which I will through my Lord and Savior. But at the end of the day, that pissed me off so much that I had to say something. You know, I had to speak up. It doesn't matter who it is, Kamala Harris, Biden, Clinton. It doesn't matter who it is. That's wrong. That they crossed the line with me. So from that point on, I decided that, you know, I just couldn't remain silent. Sorry, man. That's a tough question for me. Yeah, just a second. I'll be good. Just 2 seconds. Yeah, that really pissed me off. I saw it happen to John Kennedy, actually, when I was in elementary school, too.
Earth to God, come in, God. I know you're there, hearing our prayers wherever you are. We need you now to send your love down.
I'm a man of faith. God was looking down. It was divine intervention. God was looking down, and I get emotional when I say it. He was looking down on President Trump saying, "You're the one." I believe a higher power was saving him for us, to save us.
We need your light, we need your love to heal the world you made, and save us now in our darkest hour with your amazing grace.
He believes deeply in God. He prays. And there's no question that on that day, God was looking down. And you better believe that somebody was watching over him.
That moment in time, I really believe that he had the blessing of Christ and God over him to protect him and to save him. God bless.
I do believe that there was an act of God on that day because it was a close call, and I believe a higher power definitely saved him that day.
For me, that was like one of those, you know, real solidifying moment. I mean, a big part of faith is maybe you never know, you just have to have faith. But that was one of those like, okay, now I know. That was the hard evidence I needed to believe, you know, more so than I do, that there's something out there. And I think he feels very much the same way.
If you believed in God, you believe in God more. God thinks that I'm going to straighten out our country. Our country is so sick and it's so broken. Our country is just broken. And maybe that was the reason.
I think it's God's way of saying that the assignment is not finished.
There's a reason for him being here. We need him. We got to have him. If not, our democracy, our world, the 7.5 years that I served is all for nothing.
He knows he got a second chance at life. And I think you saw that on his face walking into the convention on that Monday night.
Earth to God, come in, God. Earth to God, come in, God.
If the events of last Saturday make anything clear, it is that every single moment we have on earth is a gift from God. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before.
I told my wife, Scott, I said, get ready, because once I start speaking, I can't shut up.
But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero? And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
He's an unbelievable warrior. You know, Dana White said it best.
I'm in the tough guy business, and this man is the toughest, most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life.
It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white or whatever the hell color you are, it doesn't matter. We are all Americans, and we're going to pull together as Americans.
He is fighting to preserve the greatest set of ideas in our Constitution that our founding fathers so brilliantly put together. I think he's just legitimately concerned for the future, for his kids, for his grandchildren.
I truly believe the book hasn't been written yet about President Trump.
People will always know he was the one guy that gave it all up to make this country great again.
Donald Trump was a unicorn. He was that anomaly. He was physically strong enough, but he had the means and he had the voice and he had the desire to fight back. And I truly believe that he'll go down in the rolls of history among the greatest presidents that we've ever had. His story will be the greatest comeback in modern day politics.
My father used to have an expression, to retire is to expire.
I think his legacy will be, I finished what I said I was going to do.
I think his goal is to leave the world a better place than what he came in.
Deep down, I think he truly knows he's the only person who can do the job necessary.
If you had asked me this 16 years ago, I would have said success. If you had asked me 4 years ago, I probably would have said that his greatest legacy he would want was to be known as a patriot. But if you ask me now, I think he wants his greatest legacy to just be father, husband, brother, son.
Oh, look at this guy.
Come here.
Gotta capture it all, baby. Television, come in. Nice, sweetheart. Good job.
Freud said that there were two things in life, love and work. If you had to choose one, which would you choose?
I don't think I could choose one. I think I'd choose both. And I think they can both work hand in hand. In fact, I think your love can be increased and I think your work can be increased by the other. I believe they can each increase the value of the other.
But if you had to choose one, if it was a life and death situation, which one would you choose?
I would probably choose love.
You would?
I think so, yes.
Folks lined up to hear straight sing. Rock this down on every king. Drop a needle down on a vine. Hold windows down, just driving 4 miles. It feels like it's been a while. When the American dream was a Cadillac and the red, white, and blue showing how you act. Things you got, you worked for. You didn't think twice, got not locked in your door. When people
He knew it was your birthday coming up? What do you say to him?
Thank you. I love you. I want my country back. Lord glory down on Main. Everybody knows your first name. Friday night lights football game. These days just don't feel the same. Sunday morning spent in church, taking things for what they're worth. Say your prayers, let him know. Send one up for the ones not coming home. The ones not coming home. And the American dream was a Cadillac and the red, white, and blue showed him how you act. Things you got, you worked for. You didn't think twice, got not locking your door. When people did the right thing with no one around, they looked at each other and found common ground. From the music to the flag. I ain't living in the past. I'm just saying that I want my country back. Yeah, I want my country back. And people were proud of the USA. American pride, American made. Fiddles and steel played on FM. Man, I just want that again.